Hey, brave souls, it's Lara here with your weekly Witchy Wednesday astrology forecast for the week of November 14th to 20th, 2018. This is take two of this video. I recorded almost the whole thing and then the camera cut off because Mercury is about to go retrograde. The last time I had these issues was the last Mercury retrograde. So astrology in real life, right? Anyway, so I'm going to do my utmost not to forget anything here. This is why I write notes and let you know what's happening this week, because particularly Thursday, Friday, there's a couple of big shifts happening. And I know you've heard me say that, like, there's been shifts happening quite a bit over the month of November, late October into November. And we are, some of us are feeling it more than others. Some of us are experiencing it differently than others. But most people are having this sense in some way, shape, or form that things are changing and shifting. And you'd be right, right? If you're feeling that way. And we have still quite a lot of energy happening at the end of certain signs. And so there's this feeling of sitting. We sort of done all we can in these areas for the time being, and now we're kind of waiting to see what happens next, or how this is going to play out, that kind of thing, right? There's this sort of that sense, but this too shall pass. It always does. Everything's in constant motion, and so just breathe through it and try to be okay with the sense of not knowing. In general, I think I mentioned to you last video, we're entering a bit more of a hopeful time, right? A bit more optimistic. And that's some relief compared to what we've been experiencing this year. And so the big news here is that Mars is entering Pisces tomorrow on Thursday, the 15th of November. It's moving out of Aquarius finally. It's been there for quite a long time. I didn't write the date down, but I think since the spring because of its retrograde. So long time in Aquarius. So it's moving into Pisces until the very last day of this year. And then bang, right out of the gate in 2019, it moves into its home sign of Aries. Where we will feel this real push kind of thing. But I'll get there, at a later date when it's time for that. And then the other major things that are happening are on Friday, where we have Venus finally moving direct in Libra, and then it will re-enter Scorpio on December 3rd, but it will be direct. Hallelujah. It's been a doozy of a Venus retrograde, right? And then on the same day, though, Mercury's going retrograde, right? And so that's happening Friday, and then Mercury will be retrograde until December 7th. And I'll break down the details of each of these things in a minute. And at the end of the video, after I've given you this overall view of things, you can then take that information and apply it to your own sun, rising, and moon sign. And I'll go through each of the signs at the end of the video and speak to what house all of this is happening in for each of you, right? What life area. So I guess I'll just give you where the moon's at. I like to do that. If you've never watched me before, first of all, welcome. I really appreciate you being here. I hope you stick around. I hope this resonates with you. If it does, I'd love if you subscribed to the channel. If you liked the video and left a comment or asked a question, I'm always happy when people do that. You can do that. And of course, if you want to reach out in terms of connecting, finding out what I what I offer, checking out readings, that kind of thing, you can do that at my website, and the link is below in the description box here below the video. And if you want more regular interactions and sort of updates, then you can follow me on Facebook and on Instagram, where I'm there pretty much daily, and the links to that are below too. But I like to tell you where the moon is at, just because it gives you a sense of the shifting energies on a more regular basis. So the moon stays in a sign for about 2 days, 2.5 days. And so we are deeply connected to the moon as humans, right? And we can feel the ebbs and flows, particularly in our emotional being. And so it's a good way to get acquainted with how the planets interact with us or impact us here on Earth, right? As above, so below. So I don't go into the specifics generally of what it means for the moon to be in a certain sign. I will hopefully do that in another video at some other date or in a class. I have so many plans, but life's just not allowing for me to focus as much time and attention on that right now. But I will when the timing is right. And but you can always do the research yourself and Google, what does it mean when the moon's in Aquarius, for example, that kind of thing, if you're interested. So the moon is entering Aquarius today, actually. And then on Thursday, it's moving into Pisces. And on Sunday, it moves into Aries and then into Taurus next Tuesday. So that's where the moon is at over this week. And when I say week, just to remind you, that's Wednesday to Wednesday. Well, the video specifically goes from today, this Wednesday, until next Tuesday, because next Wednesday I do another video, right? That's the way I do it. So, one thing I don't want to forget to mention to you before I'm going to show you the chart and then go into the details a little bit more here is when we're talking about any kind of planetary movement, the shifting into a new sign or the changing direction of a planet, like planet moving into retrograde. When I'm giving you the date, please don't take that as this is the moment in time when I'm going to feel this or when this is happening and that's it. That's not the way it works. It's particularly those of us who are tuned in and really porous, paying attention to the energy, feeling it. We all kind of feel it, but some of us are just more aware of that than others. You will tend to feel the shifts happening before and after to a degree. Not just on that date, not just at that moment in time, right? And so, I said to you, like Mercury it's in what we call the shadow phase right now. So it's in a place where it's going to revisit when it moves backwards. It doesn't move backwards. When a planet is retrograde, it appears to be moving backwards in the sky from our perspective on Earth, but it's not actually. So, we're already getting this flavor of Mercury retrograde, and therefore, I'm having to do more than one take of the video, that kind of thing. So there is an aspect happening too with this Mercury retrograde that is sort of exacerbating the whole thing. And it just happens to be an aspect. When I say aspect, I mean a conversation between two planets. It just happens to be that I have this in my own personal birth chart. I was born with this aspect. And so I'm intimately acquainted with the energy. And so I'm going to share with you my own personal experience when I get there. But I want to show you the chart before I go any further. So the thing about this chart is that I drew it up for today, but then you can, what's called animate, right? So you can move it forward a day. And I did that here. So where some of these planets are in this chart is actually going to be in a couple of days, few days time. But it gives you the sort of big picture here. So you can see that there is still a lot of energy happening at the latter degrees in certain signs, right? In certain areas, the sun is nearing the end of Scorpio. We've got Venus. At the time, it will be direct in a few days' time, right? Well, by Friday. And right now it's still retrograde there, but it's near the end of Libra. We've got the North Node that has moved into Cancer at 29 degrees there, the latter degrees of the sign. We've got Uranus at the end of Aries. We've got Chiron at the end of Pisces. We've got Mars actually right now at the very end of Aquarius, and then it will move into Pisces, where it's showing you on this chart that it is. That's the South Node, end of Capricorn. So, like, as I mentioned, there's all of this sort of energy at the end of this of various signs, right? And then, okay, so we've got Mercury that is about to go retrograde on Friday, and I'm pointed out Venus to you already. That is coming out of its retrograde and moving direct in Libra, and that aspect or conversation I mentioned to you is happening between Mercury and Neptune in Pisces. So it's a square, a conversation of tension. And I'm going to talk to you about how that impacts the Mercury retrograde. And then Mars, right, has moved into Pisces. So these are the significant things here that I'm going to cover. And I'm going to start with talking about Mars entering Pisces, because that's happening tomorrow on the 15th, on Thursday. My furnace just kicked in, so you can hear the heat blowing through the rad behind me, and it's that time of year. Winter hit us suddenly and doesn't look like it's going anywhere in the near future. So indoor heat time around here. So apologies if that's a bit distracting, if it kicks in and out, but shouldn't be too bad. Okay, so Mars is moving out of Aquarius again, where it's been for quite some time, since the spring, because of its retrograde, and it's moving into Pisces, and it's going to stay in Pisces until the end of 2018, so till December 31st. That's the energy we are finishing out the year on. Mars is the planet of drive and action. It's the warrior planet, and so it's an interesting energy when it moves into the sign of Pisces, because it can be a bit discombobulating, I guess, particularly if you're not, particularly if you're perhaps, maybe a fire sign, or if you have a lot of Aries energy in your chart, if Mars is a significant player in your chart, and you're used to this real drive and action and going after what you want kind of thing. Go. In Pisces, that energy takes on a more spiritual flavor, and it takes on the energy of Pisces, more compassion, more empathy, more imagination, and that can be a bit confusing, right? Because those energies seem a bit contradictory, but in fact, it can just it's like the signature of the spiritual warrior. Think of it that way, right? And so whatever area of the chart this is sitting for you in, whatever house it's in for you, that's where you're being sort of called to be the spiritual warrior, right? So think of it that way. So our drives and actions, like I said, they become more spiritually motivated, right? We can be more driven by our feelings and our emotions and our intuition right now. It can be a bit difficult to discern what direction to take, right? Because like Mars wants to go and Pisces is like, oh, but look over here and look over here. And it's kind of like, and that kind of thing. And it's not about the details, right? So, and that, as I mentioned, is going to be exacerbated by this conversation between Mercury and Neptune. Like the Pisces energy is factoring in. It's sort of well, Pisces is a water sign, and it sort of percolates into everything, and that's kind of what's happening over the course of the end of the year here, in general. So it's a good time to focus on sort of the deeper meaning in life, right? The more spiritual pursuits, and a feeling of connection to our spiritual life, our higher power, to the whole kind of thing. It's connect with our compassion. And it's also a good time for creative pursuits, for artistic endeavors, to putting our energy and attention and drive there, our imagination, our creativity, right? And a couple of things to just be mindful of is that our energy might ebb and flow quite a bit during this time, because Pisces has that ebb and flow to it, right? And Mars is connected to our vitality. And so our physical energy might wax and wane a little bit. Might be frustrating for some people who aren't used to that. So just, be gentle with yourself. That's just where we're at right now. And so rest when you need to, and take action when you need to, right? When you're feeling it intuitively. The other thing is, avoid putting that drive and energy into, things like escapism. So kind of going hardcore with the booze and the drugs, that kind of thing. That's not what you want to be putting your action into right now, unless, of course, it is tackling, an addiction, for example. It's a good time for that, as a matter of fact. So I think I'll leave you with that sort of foundation, in terms of that's the overall picture of Mars into Pisces. And then again, when I get to each sign, I'll speak to what area of life this is specifically happening for you. And then on Friday, as I mentioned, we've got those two big changes in direction for Venus moving direct in Libra. So moving forward at 25 degrees Libra, and then it's going to re-enter Scorpio on December 3rd. And then Mercury retrograding, so Mercury turning backwards until December 7th, first in Sagittarius, and then on December 1st, it hits Scorpio, and it'll stay in Scorpio until the 13th, where it re-enters Sag on the 13th. So for the beginning of December, it will be in Scorpio. I'm going to address both of those for each of you, each sign as well, in a minute. But let's break it down a little bit further in terms of each of these and the overall picture, right? So Venus has been retrograde since early October. It's been a doozy of a retrograde, because it's spent a lot of time retrograding in the intense sign of Scorpio. And so matters of love, relationships, values, resources, our self-worth, those are all Venusian matters, right? We've been really asked to take a good look there, and really, really perhaps come to terms with some things, heal some things, make some readjustments there, right? Particularly in whatever house that's been in for us, or houses, because it's been in Scorpio and Libra. But these areas of life should begin to ease up for us a little bit and move forward, right? If you felt stagnation or intensity in wherever Scorpio and Libra, in those houses, and in terms of money matters of the heart, matters of your self-worth, and your values, then that should let up. And again, be patient. It's not going to happen overnight, right? Like I mentioned to you, it takes some time. So when a planet stations direct, it's called, when it changes direction, it takes a bit of time for it to reorient itself, right? And so it's not going to generally happen. Like, we're not going to feel this big shift forward necessarily, whoomp, all at once on Friday. May get some inkling of it, but it'll take a bit of time to get the momentum going, right? So be patient, and that feeling of disorientation may be amplified because of the fact that on the same day Mercury is going retrograde. So Mercury's the messenger god, right? He deals with our communications, all things communication, our ideas, our thinking, our internal dialogue, our style of communication, and the elements of communication, which cover everything from the written word to verbal to electronic communications, any kind of networking or interactions in general, right, with others. And so when Mercury goes retrograde, he can be a bit of a trickster, and this can cause some mishaps and some glitches sometimes in terms of our communications. And even things like, short commutes or travel plans. So we can have issues with our phones, our computers. Things can happen like missing appointments. Like, oh, I thought the appointment was on this day, and then the dentist is like, well, actually, we had you scheduled for last week, like that kind of thing, right? It can also be, one thing I want to remember to tell you is there can be this element of nervous tension or anxious thinking because our thoughts are being turned inward, right? And so I guess how that plays out for you can kind of depend on your internal dialogue, but that is definitely something that's a possibility. But it's a really good time for inner awareness, right? For awareness on our self-talk and our thought patterns. It's a really good time to notice that, to be mindful of it, to reflect on it. And that's a big word here. When Mercury's retrograde, it's a time of slowing down. When any planet goes retrograde, it's because it's calling our attention. It's going, hey, there's something over here you need to pay attention to. You need to slow down. You need to give this some consideration. You need to maybe rethink this, reevaluate it, revisit it, review it before moving on, right? That's why it happens. It's not doing it to tick us off and to frustrate us, although that can happen. But look for what's being asked of you here, and that's a review and some reflection in a particular area of life, and we'll get to that in a minute. But those glitches and things and miscommunications can definitely happen, so just be patient and slow down. Mercury retrograde is saying slow down, slow it down. So specifically, Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius can impact our big picture thinking, right? Because Sag is all about the big picture, the long view, the vision for the future. Sag isn't so much into the details, and Mercury is into the details. So it's this interplay between the higher mind and the lower mind kind of thing, the big picture and the details. And so with a Mercury retrograde, this can get a little bit fuzzy, and this is amplified by the fact that Mercury and Neptune are in a square to each other. So this conversation of tension. So this amplifies this fuzziness. And one of my favorite astrologers, Steve Judd, was saying, it's not a good time to rely on your mind, but more on your intuition right now, with this Mercury retrograde in particular. So what came to mind for me when I was contemplating that, it's a good time to go inward, right, with any information and ask yourself, does this ring true for me? Not about like, are the facts true? Is it logical? Is it rational? But more like intuitively, am I sensing that this is ringing true, right? It's more about the meaning, the overall meaning, than the details. I don't know if that makes sense. So we may be sort of misunderstanding or misinterpreting the big picture overall. And also one thing with this energy, Sag is a truth teller, right? They like to tell it like it is. So there's a tendency here, like sometimes they can just be a little bit too blunt for some people's comfort. And So just be mindful of not sort of just blurting out whatever's in your head and, not thinking it through first. And, because it might be mistaken or misunderstood. And before I go through the signs, I want to spend a minute talking to you about this fact that Mercury is squaring Neptune, right, until November 20th. And so this is exacerbating all of this. And it will give you a bit of what I'm about to explain to you here is going to give you a bit of a better understanding about what this Mercury retrograde can feel like, and perhaps what you can do to navigate it. Because I have Mercury square Neptune in my birth chart. So I live with this energy on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute basis. And so I know a thing or two about it, and have learned over time how to work with it better. So from personal experience, I can tell you that miscommunication can definitely be a factor here, right? So that's either like you not being able to make yourself understood, or you not getting accurate information, or somehow missing the truth, missing the facts. And that can happen in a few ways. That can be because, people are keeping things from you. Maybe white lies are being told. Maybe they're just, they're keeping secrets, or maybe they're misleading you in some way. So like deception can happen, right? It can kind of like the communication can be unclear, and we're not really seeing things as they are. And this is why it's really important to rely on your intuition rather than how it appears or what your mind is telling you, right? For many, many years, I relied too much on this and not enough on this. Even though, my intuition, my gut, my heart was like hollering at me that, this is not how it appears, or somebody's not being straight with you here, or maybe you want to look a little closer over there. I was ignoring that because my head was ruling over my heart or my intuition. And so that's not to say you completely dismiss, the mind, but it's really important with this Mercury retrograde, with this Mercury square Neptune, to really, really pay attention to your intuition right now. So also another thing is that there can be this tendency of really getting sucked in by emotional vampires, right? So people who suck your energy because of their own dysfunction, because you want to be compassionate and empathetic, and you may be seeing the situation through rose-colored glasses. And so people consciously or unconsciously feed on that or prey on it, right? And so just be mindful of that you're not being sort of victim, quote unquote, to emotional vampires, right? Narcissists, that kind of thing. Another thing is it can be difficult to accurately articulate what's in your head. So this is why I always write notes before I do these videos, because I need to think about the information, to process it, to write it down, to make sure that the words I'm choosing are appropriate, to think about, how the message is going to come across, to edit, all of those kinds of things, right? So that I can ensure that I'm being clearly understood, that what's in here is actually what's being relayed. And so writing can really help with that. And that's why I like to write. And that's why that's also why I choose to do the majority of my readings via audio recording, because it gives me a chance to really sit with the information and to really process it and connect to my intuition and, have the proper word choice, all of that, right? And that's why I do that. And another thing with this energy is it can also cause you some trouble grasping the details I have a Virgo rising, so this helps with this person, for me. But in general, it's like you have an easier time with the bigger picture. More esoteric concepts come easier. But things that require sort of more logical or linear or formulaic thinking can be a little bit more difficult. So, for example, in terms of math has never been my forte. I've had difficulty with that. And the areas of math that have come easier for me are things like algebra, right? And word problems. So that more kind of abstract element of it. So, there's that. Just take extra care and caution to focus on the details and to cross the T's and dot the I's and all of that in terms of your communications and the messages that are being received and, put forth. Communication is a two-way thing, right? And that also goes with your internal communication. But the thing is that your nonverbal communication can be on fire with this energy, with this aspect. And so you can really be good at picking up on things like body language. I'm really adept at that. Not a lot of people realize that, I think, but that's one of the reasons that's one of the ways it's really become, now that I've turned, really have this strong relationship with my intuition, and I've noticed these things and honed these skills, is I'm very easily able to tell when somebody's not being truthful with me. So your nonverbal communication can be on fire, right? And your intuition. So that's awesome. And the last thing I'll say about this is that, overindulgence, sort of numbing things out with alcohol or drugs or even food, perhaps, can further exacerbate any lack of clarity. So just be mindful of that, especially because we are kind of moving into the holiday season right now. And so it's something to be aware of, right? Okay, so now I'm going to spend the rest of the time going through each of the signs. You have the overall picture here of what each of these energies feels like, right? The Mars moving into Pisces, and then the Mercury retrograding first through Sagittarius and then into Scorpio at the beginning of September. And so I'm going to talk to you about which houses each of those things is happening, which life area for each sign. And you can take what I've said and apply it to that life area. So again, listen first and foremost for your rising sign, because the reason I say that is it's more accurate when we're talking about these general overall readings. It tends to be how things play out in the physical world for us when we're speaking to the rising sign. But then also the sun sign and the moon sign. Sometimes, depending on what's going on for an individual, one of those will resonate more than others. But it gives you a fuller picture. So beginning with Aries. Aries, Mars is going to be in your 12th house. Pisces is in the 12th for you. So this is lots of internal evaluation, right, going on. Like turning your actions and drive towards more spiritual reflection, perhaps more solitude. And, thinking about like the big picture, the meaning, what does it all mean kind of thing. That's where the Mars energy is happening for you until the end of the year, Aries. And then Mercury retrograde is happening in your 9th and then your 8th houses. So reflection, that's the key one I really want you to focus on. Reflection, review, reevaluation, right? And perhaps some glitches or some patience with that area of life that covers your philosophy, your belief system, issues of justice, teaching and learning, and travel as well, long distance in particular, right? And then moving into the 8th, which has to do with our intimate connections, our shared resources. So money we share with others, or money we get from others, money we give to others kind of thing. Inheritances, taxes, insurance, that kind of thing. And also the deep psyche, right? So healing, transformation, that kind of thing. So that's where Mercury's retrograding for you. Moving on to Taurus. Taurus Mars is going to be moving through your 11th house until the end of the year. And so this is more drive in terms of maybe philanthropic pursuits, right? More attention on compassion and empathy in terms of friendship groups, associations, clubs, organizations, and even your vision for the future. You may be taking compassionate action, if that makes sense, in that area of life. And then Mercury is retrograding first through your 8th house and then into your 7th at the beginning of December. And so that reevaluation, the reflection, the patience is being asked of you in terms of your intimate connections, in terms of your shared resources, and in terms of your deep psyche, right? The healing of the deep psyche, the transformation and transmutation of the soul kind of thing. And then it's moving into your 7th house of one-to-one relationships. And so that reflection piece is being asked of you at the beginning of December in that area of life. Okay, so Gemini, I don't want to spend too much time on each here because you've got the overall picture. So this is just like the Cole's notes of what area of life it's happening. Gemini, this is happening in your 10th house. Mars is moving through the 10th house. So you're being called to be a spiritual warrior, Gemini, in terms of your public reputation, your career ambitions, your authority, or your relationship to authority figures, like the father. It covers the 10th house. Maybe more compassionate leadership. You're being called to action there. And then Mercury retrograding through the 7th and then the 6th houses. So reflection, review, perhaps some glitches happening in terms of the one-to-one relationships in your life, business partnerships, marriages, close one-to-one relationships. And then your daily routine. So the daily grind, your health and wellness routines, those are up for some reflection at the beginning of December. Cancer. This is for you. Mars is moving through your 9th house for the remainder of the year. So your energy is focused on your beliefs, philosophies, perhaps traveling to foreign lands even, teaching, learning. And it will have this Piscean flavor of spirituality. Maybe you're going to go on a spiritual quest or a spiritual journey, right? Traveling for spiritual purposes. It'll have a flavor of creativity, compassion to it. And then Mercury's retrograding through your 6th and then your 5th houses. And so that reflection and review piece and that patience with any mishaps, is being asked of you in terms of your daily routine, your day-to-day chores and activities and work, health and wellness routines, and then moving at the beginning of December towards the area of life that has to do with children, whether they be yours or children you're associated with, your creative self-expression, and how you have fun in life as well. Leo, Mars is moving through your 8th house for the remainder of 2018. And so you will have this perhaps more spiritual, compassionate drive in terms of your intimate connections, your shared resources, and psychological healing and transformation as well. Maybe having more compassion with the process of maybe seeing shared resources, right? And in a more kind of spiritual way, if that makes sense, Leo. And then Mercury is retrograding through your 5th house and then your 4th. So reflection, reevaluation, patience is being asked of you in terms of children, creativity, right? Your creative self-expression, and the fun things in life, like the pleasures, right? How you have fun. And then it's moving into your area of home and family and your actual place of living and your private life and your ancestry and issues around the mother perhaps as well. And then Virgo, this is happening in your 7th house. Mars is asking you to be the spiritual warrior in terms of your one-to-one relationships, right? So it's asking for more compassion and empathy there. And then Mercury's retrograding through your 4th house and then your 3rd house at the beginning of December. So Virgo, some review and reflection and patience is being asked in terms of your home, your family, your place of living, issues around the mother or your private life, all of these things. And then we'll move into that area of life that has to do with your communications, your thinking, internal dialogue, but communications, interactions with others as well, and short distance travel as well, Virgo. Okay, moving on to Libra. Libra, this Mars through Pisces is happening in your 6th house. So you are driven at this time to be more compassionate, more spiritual, more go with the flow in terms of your daily routines and your health and wellness routines and your day-to-day affairs, a daily grind kind of thing. And then the reevaluation and the reflection and the patience with any glitches that may arise is being asked of you first in your 3rd house and then in your 2nd. So your 3rd house, in terms of your communications and your thoughts and any short trips you have to take, short commutes kind of thing. Be patient there. Reflect on that. Review in those areas of life. And then at the beginning of December, on your finances, on your values, on what you value, on your resources and your self-worth. Okay, Libra? And then moving to Scorpio. Scorpio, this is happening for you in your 5th house, Mars in Pisces. And then Mercury's retrograding through the 2nd and the 1st. So you're being called to be more compassionate and, more spiritually driven in terms of your children, or children that you work with or are associated with, in terms of your creativity, in terms of how you have fun in life as well. And in terms of your relationship to your inner child as well, I would say, Scorpio. And then Mercury is asking you to review, reflect, and be patient in terms of your finances, your resources, your self-worth, what you value. And then at the beginning of December, turning towards the self. So your physical vitality, your appearance, how you approach the world, your first impression kind of thing. So that's for you, Scorpio. And Sagittarius, you're next. So Mars is going to be moving through your 4th house for the remainder of the year. Your energy will be more focused, in a more compassionate, dreamy, creative kind of go with the flow way on your home, on your family, on your place, your actual place of living, perhaps on your mother or a mother figure, on your private life. And then you're being asked to reflect on, to review, to reevaluate, to be patient with any glitches that arise in terms of your appearance, your physical appearance, how you approach the world and how you are seen by the world. And then at the beginning of December, more internally, right? There's a more internal review going on. You're focusing more on your spiritual life, spending more time in solitude, reflecting and reviewing, and hopefully not self-sabotaging, Sagittarius. Okay, and moving on to Capricorn. Capricorn, Mars is moving through your 3rd house until December 31st. And so your attention, your drive and your action will be on in regards to your daily communications, right? That's the 3rd house. Anything communication related. And also relationships with siblings, cousins, your peers. Those will have a more Piscean flavor, right? Being more compassionate, empathetic, creative, maybe even a little bit unclear. And then Mercury is retrograding through your 12th house, first of all. So reflection, reevaluation, patience in terms of your unconscious. So asking for some inner reflection, your thoughts turning more towards spiritual matters, right? And less towards the day-to-day. And then the beginning of December, moving to reflecting on friendships, organizations, networks, your vision for the future, Capricorn. So that's for you. And then Aquarius, Mars is moving through your 2nd house for the remainder of the year. So there'll be more focus, more drive in terms of your finances, your values, your resources, your self-worth, but with a more spiritual, empathetic, compassionate flavor. You know, maybe money is being spent on humanitarian causes. We are moving into the holidays, so people can be giving more at this time of year, right, Aquarius? But just be mindful not to sort of give until it hurts, you know? And then you're asking for review and reflection, and perhaps, you know, patience with some glitches in terms of friends, in terms of organizations, networks, your vision for the future. And then at the beginning of December, in terms of your career, your public reputation, your relationship to authority, perhaps a father figure. And then last but not least, Pisces, Mars is moving through your first house, right? And so that energy and drive is turned towards the self, but in a compassionate, Piscean, empathetic, dreamy, creative way, right? So maybe just how you relate to the world becomes more spiritual, more compassionate in general. And then Mercury is retrograding first through your 10th house and then your 9th. So you're asking for, you know, to review, to reflect on, to reevaluate, to have patience with your career ambitions, your public reputation, authority figures, you know, like the father. And then at the beginning of December, in terms of long distance travel, the bigger picture things like your philosophy, your beliefs, issues around teaching, around learning, and even around justice as well is what's up for review there at the beginning of December, Pisces. So that's all 12 signs, and I hope that wasn't too rushed for you. But again, look at the overall picture, hear that message, and then apply it to what I just said for your sign, okay? So be patient, lots of deep breaths as these signs are shifting direction, and I will talk to you next week, okay? Take care. Bye-bye.